you thought last year's massive public sector strike had settled post-pandemic return to office policy, think again. The Treasury Board has announced it wants to boost public servants' time in offices from 2 days a week to 3 for staff and up to 4 days a week for executives, drawing ire from this country's largest public sector unions. We requested Treasury Board President Anita Anand, her parliamentary secretary, or another delegate for the show today to respond to those concerns. None were available. Joining us now is Stephanie Montreuil with the Professional Institute of the Public Service of Canada. Hi, Ms. Montreuil. Good to see you. Thank you very much for making the time.
It's my pleasure.
We had heard from some other unions involved in this that they actually learned through the media that this would be happening. Is that the case for you as well?
Yes, absolutely. This came as a complete surprise to us. We were asked to, we learned about it in the media at the time. That was considered rumor. And then a day before the announcement at 5 p.m., we were asked to join a call at 2 p.m. the following day.
So it has officially been communicated to you now?
That's correct, yes.
And what is what is your understanding of what exactly it means? Is it point blank, everyone has to go back minimum 3 days a week, or 3 days a week no matter what, starting September 9th?
Yeah, so and this is the main thing that we object to, is that it's a one-size-fits-all approach, but also that it was done without consultation. So we'd been told from this government that we would be consulted on such issues, and that did not happen at all. This came as a complete surprise.
So what are your concerns? Let's say, should they have consulted with you? What would your concerns have been? Pardon me.
Yeah. So, public servants are very dedicated workers. We represent professionals. They like to have evidence-based reasoning for things to change, and there's no indication that anything has changed. So, PIPS members have been providing frontline service during the pandemic. We have doctors, psychologists, nurses, researchers, folks who worked at CRA delivering CERB payments. All these folks have been doing their work, during the pandemic, post-pandemic, and we had agreements in place and those were working. And so there's no evidence that anything has changed, and this came with no consultation and as a complete surprise.
So what they said essentially in a letter around this issue, and I'm going to put to you the statement from the Treasury Board Secretariat. Requiring a minimum of 3 days on site per week reflects the benefits that consistent in-person interactions offer. These include more effective collaboration and onboarding of new talent, as well as building a strong culture of performance that is consistent with values and ethics of the public service. This approach is consistent with many provincial and territorial governments and private sector organizations. I saw your face kind of move there at the start. You don't believe, I'm assuming, that this is consistent, as the letter states, or reflects the benefits that are consistent with in-person interactions?
Couple of things. So we'd like to see the evidence that they're using to make these statements. The second thing is that I'm hearing consistently from PIPS members that it is very difficult to work collaboratively because not everybody goes into the office on the same day, or they would like to have group meetings, but they can't find a meeting room that has enough space for the team. So what ends up happening is you go to the office and you work at a random desk that is not yours because you're hot desking and sharing spaces, and you're having Zoom meetings all day. So some of the benefits that they're stating in that statement are questionable. From an attraction and retention perspective, if we want the best public service that we can have, we do need to attract and retain young workers. And I don't know that requiring people to go back to 3 days a week with no consultation and little notice is the best way to do that.
Can you expand on what those working conditions are like, or what it's like when you do go back to the office? Because I think a lot of Canadians will have heard this or read the headline and thought, come on, I'm back at work 5 days. What's the big deal? Public servants don't want to go back in 3 days. I'm just reflecting what I think, my inbox is going to say after I conduct this interview. Could you describe what that actually means on a day-to-day basis?
What it
because
looks
I
like?
was surprised to learn from a lot of public servants who also weighed in on this in the past 24 hours. It's not like they're going to an office that they meet their same colleagues at all the time and the way we would have 5 or 6 years ago, or the way I do here, for example.
Correct.
It's very different than that.
It's very different. And I will say it varies from department to department as well, so it's not consistent. What's even more concerning, though, is, as you'll recall, in the federal budget, which was just a couple of weeks ago, the added concern that we have is it was announced that the government will be divesting 50% of its buildings. So when you think about that, and you think about the fact that currently, you have the situation where someone will try to book a desk for the day that they would like to go into the office, and that does not happen. So in most cases, folks don't have a permanent desk that they go back to. So from one day to the next, they're working in a different space, they're working next to different people. I've heard stories of folks going into the office and there's still garbage from the person that was using the desk the previous day. So these aren't ideal conditions.
If those conditions were to be rectified, is the idea of a 3-day in the office work week palatable, though, to you and your members?
Well, it doesn't change the fact that we were promised consultation with the government before any sort of blanket approach was taken, and that wasn't done. So we did request an emergency meeting with Minister Anand to say, we were promised consultation, it did not happen. This was leaked to the media before we were advised that this was going to happen, the same way that the initial direction came out in the fall of 2022. So we need to improve that relationship so that, the public servants who are very dedicated to the work that they do for Canadians feel respected.
Have you received any response to that meeting request?
We have not yet received a response to that meeting request, but we are continuing to demand to have that meeting.
Part of the statement released to us from the Secretariat for the Treasury Board, the Treasury Board of which she's the president, said to us the employer has the exclusive management right to designate the location of work and to require employees to report to their designated work site. However, bargaining agents were officially made aware of these changes shortly before employees, I think in reference to the 5 o'clock notice that you said. Essentially, they're contending here, like, it's their right to do this when they want to.
I think that is what they're contending, and it is really unfortunate. So the lack of consultation, of course, is our number one concern. But again, I will repeat that the conditions of work right now are not ideal for the public servants to be delivering the best level of service to Canadians. And when you add that to the fact that we're talking about getting rid of 50% of the buildings, this creates even more important concerns in terms of, how they'll be able to continue to do that work effectively moving forward.
Has anything been communicated to your union about how that will work as they do divest of those buildings? Like, do they anticipate they'll have enough room for everybody?
It has not, and the benefit of consulting with unions is we can talk about the real life implications of these changes in policy. So that's why we are so adamant about that consultation that we were promised and that did not occur, because we can help them roll out these policies in a way that is a lot more effective.
Just finally, the other union that I referenced off the top said that they anticipate they'll pursue legal action because of this. Is that something your union is considering?
Yeah, we're definitely looking at all of our options, and legal action is definitely one of the mechanisms that we're exploring at the moment.
And do you know what that would be based on? Like, is it the lack of consultation or the principle of actually just having to go in 3 days a week?
No, it would be, we would have to look at what the options are, but it would be based on the lack of consultation that is in the collective bargaining agreements.
Okay, I'm going to leave it on that note. Thank you very much for making the time for the conversation. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.